So today I made a list of every of a trade and a free agency signing, if necessary, that could help each team in the Eastern Conference. Now, this is part one, and I will do part two tomorrow, so you'll want to watch out for that coming tomorrow. So today I will be doing the Eastern Conference, one trade that I think could help for each team, um, in the Eastern Conference, and a free agency signing if necessary. Now some of these teams I feel like don't need that much help, so they may just assign. Some of these trades may have just been to get like an extra pick from the second round or two. But I'll explain each trade as we go on. First off, starting with the Hawks. This is one of the teams that I saw that really didn't need much of a roster change. Now they could have a little roster improvement. I traded Jock Landell and Raj Dennis in a 2027 round 2 pick to the Hornets for a 2027 round 1 for a 2027 round 1 top 8 protected from Charlotte, a 2028 round 2 uh, via Orlando from Charlotte, and a 2031 round 2 via Milwaukee, and Atlanta gets rights to swap. And then that's kind of just salary dumping Jock Landale to make space to sign DeAndre Ayton from free agency. I think this could help them because it's a minor upgrade, but it could help them. I feel like having DeAndre Ayton is an upgrade to, as opposed to having Jock Landale as your backup. You now have DeAndre Ayton, and you can also start him at the 4 sometimes if injuries start hitting or something. And I feel like he's more reliable than Jock Landale. He's not like a great, tremendously good center, but obviously he's gonna be. I think he could help them from the bench. I think he could do. He could be a really good backup center. I think as a backup center, that would kind of help his role. That would make him um, develop into a really good backup center. For our next team, oh, by the way, so these trades are one sided, so they may affect the other team. They may not be good for the other team, but they are good for the team that I'm doing the trade for. The Celtics. I think this is one of those parts. So the Celtics trade Luka Garza, a 2027 round 1 top 3 protected, and a 2030 round 2 pick for Nikola Vucevic. Again, this is another team that I don't really see a major need to have major upgrades to the roster. I did sign Dennis Jenkins on a 3-year contract worth in total, I believe it was 16 million or something, 5.5 million per year. Dennis Jenkins, he brings a good, really some good playmaking off the bench behind Peyton Pritchard. If Peyton Pritchard gets injured, or Dennis Jenkins may earn his spot as a starter. If Peyton Pritchard gets injured, he can start, and so this kind of brings backup playmaking, because yeah, I know they have Derek White and everything, but those aren't natural point guards. Unlike Dennis Jenkins, he's a natural point guard, so that's his natural position. And Nikola Vucevic is a small upgrade at the backup center. You may start him from time to time, depending on if injuries again hit or something. And the Magic get Luka Garza and some picks, which could be decently useful. It's kind of a little bit, Luka Garza and Nikola Vucevic, on my perspective, are kind of a little bit the same profile, but Nikola Vucevic, statistical wise, is a little bit better. So that's why the Celtics have to, give some of the picks. Um, for a third team, so some of these are going to be really interesting. The Nets. Now, this is an interesting case because I think this could be potentially really useful, because now they have Julius Randle, and they have MPJ. You have Noah Clowney, who's developing really well. You don't have Nick Claxton anymore. So I went out and signed them Jeremy Grant, a power forward, to kind of make up that third kind of scorer. Because you have Julius Randle, who averaged 21 points, Michael Porter Jr. giving you around 24. Uh, these are around. These aren't exactly what they averaged this season, and then Jeremy Grant giving you around 18 points. So that's production. So that's really good production of your three stars, air quotes, I guess, for the Nets. And then they just trade Cam Jones for Ben Saroff. That's kind of an obligatory trade. I don't really see any need to trade anyone from the Nets, but it's kind of obligatory to trade them. So I guess I just did that because it's kind of the same archetype of player. But and then I also went out and signed them Derek Lively the second, who I know may not be exactly Nick Claxton that they traded away. But it's a little bit of a replacement because I saw that they didn't really have a center that much. So I guess Derek Lively could step on for that role at least for a little bit until they can draft or get someone or like get someone or sign someone better than Derek Lively. And this was not to go over the cap. Jeremy Grant gets $29 million over 2 years. Derek Lively gets $6.7 million in total per year, to a 3 year deal for Derek Lively and a 2 year deal for Jeremy Grant. This gives him a little bit of flexibility with Jeremy Grant if he starts declining or something. This could give them a little bit of flexibility to wait out the 2 years and then signing someone new with that money or something. But I think if they added a player like Jeremy Grant to Michael Porter Jr. and Julius Randle, your starting lineup would now look something like probably Jaeger Demon. Maybe you put, if you want to go bully ball, you could put Noah Clowney at the 2, then Jeremy Grant at the 3, Julius Randle at the 4. I mean, actually, my bad. What am I saying? You could probably put like Noah Clowney. Well, this if you want to go really big. If they want to go really big, they could go with Noah Clowney, Michael Porter Jr., Jeremy Grant, Julius Randle, and Derek Lively the second. And I think if you have your some teams have like one or two stars that produce like 26 points per game, but obviously this is not the case about the Nets. They have Julius Randle, who gives you about 29, 21 a night, decent production. And PJ, who just came off an all-star great level season, 24 points, around 24 points. And Jeremy Grant, who's giving you really good production, really decent production, and he's being decently efficient with 18 points. So while you don't have that one or two stars that are massively producing, you have those three high-level starters who can really help you out on that scoring. And if you look at their averages and you put it all together, you'll figure out that it's actually really decent production because in total you'd have around 77 points, assuming all of these guys in combined Jeremy Grant, combined in between Jeremy Grant, Julius Randle, and Michael Porter Jr. Well, look at it. So you have 20. So you have 21 from Julius Randle. You have 24 from Michael Porter Jr. That makes 45. Add 18 from Jeremy Grant. Well, that makes 55. Plus a, oh my gosh, I overcounted. My bad. And but you had now you have 55. Add 8 to that. That's 63 points plus the bench points. That would be now Jaeger Demon. That would be Noah Clowney, and I think that could be a decent team. At least I think it could steal a playing spot next year if they did something like this. I think this would be helpful for them. And then you also have Derek Lively, who can score a little bit, and out of the Derek Lively scoring in there, out of the Cam Jones scoring in there, and so you really have all of this, and I think they have scoring power. And obviously, this team also can play defense because you have Julius Randle, Michael Porter Jr., Jeremy Grant. These guys have size. Noah Clowney. They have also hard workers on there. Jordy Fernandez. I think he's a great coach. Um, Obviously, his team is not like a top team, but yeah, I think he personally as a coach is really good, and so I think this could really help them a lot to maybe push for a playing spot. I don't know if playoffs, but I definitely do know playing spot. Um, for the Hornets, this is one of those teams where I really wasn't sure what to do. So I just traded Royce O'Neal and a 2029 round two pick via Minnesota to the Mavs for Klay Thompson. Now, the reason why I did this is because Klay Thompson is a sniper. He can also bring some culture in there. And he also is a veteran leader who played on a championship team. So he knows what it is to be like in a winning culture. And that's really key for this Hornets team who have, at the most, like this year, gotten to a playing spot. And now they've made so many changes to the roster, and so I think you really need a guy with a winning culture in there that has a mentality of a winning culture in there. Also, with the Mavericks in 2024, they made their finals run with Luka and Kyrie and everything. But yeah, so I don't think there's really much to talk about this, but I do think this could, in way more in leadership aspects than anything more, help the Hornets. Yeah. And the next team was the Bulls. Now, how do I think this makes the Bulls better? Well, first you signed I signed Marcus Smart to a $13.1 million deal over the progress of 2 years. And then you trade Patrick Williams, Rob Dillingham, a 2029 round 2 pick, and a 2031 round 2 pick to the Pelicans for Herb Jones. Now, Herb Jones is a guy who can score the ball, and he's also a lockdown wing. And I think that's kind of what the Bulls need, because if you look at it, so you start Giddy. Um, Now you can start, I guess, uh, let me think. Because now you can start Norman Powell, then you can start Herbert Jones or Modest Pizelis, depending on the opponent, or if someone's injured or anything. Um, I had to start Herbert Jones over Modest Pizelis and make Pizelis a bench player, because I think Pizelis can do more off the bench than as a starter. Then you start Caleb Wilson, and then you obviously have the center who could be Jalen Smith or whatever. And so you have those guys, and then you have Herbert Jones and Marcus Smart. I feel like you should start him some way. In some way, you should start him, because he also brings defense, and that's something that I see that this Bulls team kind of lacks. Defense, because Giddy, he tries to play defense and everything, but this team doesn't really have defense. And Herbert Jones and Marcus Smart uh, pro, um, can help that come to life, can help that vision come to life. So I think this could be very well helpful, if you know what I mean. And so bringing Marcus Martin obviously brings playmaking too behind Giddy, because I feel like Giddy is if you look at the roster, Giddy is the only natural point guard listed on this team. And so now you have Marcus Smart, who also brings playmaking, and that's what you need. And then Herbert Jones, who can score, but is also a lockdown defender who takes on the other team's um, primary ball handlers and everything. So I think this could be helpful. And yeah, you did get rid of two second round picks and Rob Dillingham and Patrick Williams, but second round picks, um, they're decent, but some second round picks usually can't make rotations, so I don't think it's a massive thing. And then Patrick Williams, he obviously, I think it's worth trading Patrick Williams and Rob Dillingham for Herbert Jones. Um, let's look at our next team, which is the Cleveland Cavaliers for the Phoenix Suns. This is another team that I'm like, okay, now this team can't win apparently, but I also don't see any reason to change their roster, so just decided to make their roster a little bit younger, bringing a second round pick from Phoenix and trading James Harden for Jalen Green. Now, I've seen Jalen Green play. He's kind of the same archetype. I think he's kind of the same archetype as James Harden, just a younger version. Actually, if you look here on the thing, it says James Harden shot creator, and it says Jalen Green shot creator. So I think they're kind of the same archetype. It's just Jalen Green is a little younger. So I think it just helps the Cavs a little bit. I mean, obviously this helps the Suns to win now. This is better for the Suns. Um, but Jalen Green, it just kind of brings the same James Harden thing, but also Jalen Green, I think he actually tries to play defense. He's not like James Harden who cannot play defense at all. I think Jalen Green gives his at least effort to play defense, and then you get around to pick out of it, which is decent. You could make that as a sweetener in another trade that you could do, where you could draft a player and see if he cracks a rotation, take a chance at a player, and yeah, it's basically just making Cleveland a little bit younger because they are not a really young team, so maybe they contend for now, but the future, I don't know. The future doesn't really look much in Cleveland after like Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, James Harden era ends. I don't really know what's gonna happen to Cleveland after that. I don't see a massive future, at least. This is my opinion. Um, so I think this could be potentially help them to get a little bit younger. And for the Suns, this is kind of helpful for the Suns too, because they also get like kind of a win now. You get a superstar you get a superstar star along Devin Booker, which could be potentially helpful. Um, the next trade that we have is the Detroit Pistons. Now, this is one I really want to focus into because obviously they lost Beef Stew, they lost Isaiah Stewart, they lost Tobias Harris. Um, so they're going to be in a really interesting scenario next season. But they do have the cap space to do some of these moves. So first up, they trade Torian Prince and a 2027 round one unprotected pick to the Kings for Precious Achua, a backup center. You have this guy who's a backup center, a rolling cut big. Uh, I feel like he could try to fill in for Isaiah Stewart's job, to be the backup center behind Jalen Duren. You bring back Jalen Duren on a $30 million contract per year. On a $30 million contract per year. Well, yeah, and so that's $60 million in 2 years. Then you bring Scoot Henderson in, uh, who's a scorer. I think so. One of the problems, obviously, as we saw during the playoffs, is that the offense was majorly carried by Cade, and so the defense was being decent, but the offense was being carried by Cade, and Jalen Duren couldn't really do anything about that. He didn't do what he was expected to do, and so sometimes that just happens. And this trade specifically is one of the teams where it could make them potentially very much better. You bring back Jalen Duren, right? You got Precious Achua now, and then you bring back Scoot Henderson, who's a microwave scorer off the bench, or you could start him too. You could go like Scoot Henderson, Dame at the 2, and then Cade at the 3, and you have 3 playmakers who can all score. $15 million contract worth per year, in total worth $7 million. In total worth $30 million. Then you bring back Damian Lillard on a 1-year contract, $11 million. Now, the reason why I signed Damian Lillard is because, well, yes, I could have signed someone else, and he was younger, less injury prone. Damian Lillard has more playoff experience, and this is one of the things that could have affected Jalen Duren, is the fact that he didn't really have massive playoff experience. So while he was, in air quotes, the co-star of Cade Cunningham, he didn't really much, because I think experience was one of the main things that he lacked. So by bringing in Damian Lillard, you kind of have now that experience required, and you have a guy who can produce 30 points for you in a playoff series, who can give you 25 in a playoff series, and that is insurance that Cade, and can be a really good co-star to Cade Cunningham. So I'd be really excited if I saw this for Detroit. You have a guy who can take the offensive load off of Cade Cunningham, and this team is placed enough defense that you can afford to have a guy like Damian Lillard in your lineup. You can afford to have a guy like Scoot Henderson in your lineup. And well, yes, the reason why I did a 1 year is, well, yes, you may start hating on me. Yeah, but Dame and all the injuries and everything. That's why I did a 1 year contract. Because if Damian Lillard can show the Pistons that he can still play at that level that he used to play, because I've seen Damian Lillard play. I mean, he's still a really good player. So if he can, if this is kind of a trial year season for Damian Lillard for the Pistons, and then you bring in Grant Williams, which is kind of a little bit to get younger Tobias Harris, I guess. I know he's not exactly a Tobias Harris level player, but he's decent. I think he could do some stuff there in Detroit and upgrade them a little bit behind John Collins and everything. And so now your starting lineup could be something like, and, at the point guard slot, you put Scoot Henderson, you put Damian Lillard at the 2, and you put and you put Cade at the 3, then you put like Grant Williams or John Collins at the 4, and then Jalen Jordan at the 5. This team can play decent defense, of course. And then I got Damian Lillard, obviously, but one of the reasons I got Scoot Henderson, not just because of his scoring and take the offensive load off of Cade, is I got these two guys because they could get the playmaking load off of Cade too, and this is also injury insurance for Cade. And then Cade is injury insurance for them. And these are two kind of like their co-stars. These three would be kind of their co-stars. And if Damian Lillard's injured, Scoot Henderson, while doesn't have really that playoff experience, I think he could potentially be a temporary engine to an offense. He probably wouldn't be Cade level or Lillard level. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry about that. Oh my gosh. My tongue slipped. I did not mean to say that. I meant to say level. Anyway, while he may not be Lillard or Cade level, he could potentially be the temporary offense engine for like a game or two during a series in a playoffs or something. And Jalen Duren, we have to trust that he develops. So I think if they did this, this could potentially be really interesting. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say. I think Detroit could potentially do really good stuff if they had this. Yeah, but again, this is next. Indiana Pacers. This is again a team that I see like they don't necessarily need to trade. But I did trade. I signed and traded Jalen Sawson and a 2032 round 2 pick for 2 round 2 picks from Brooklyn, unprotected, and brought Brandon Miller. Brought Brandon Miller on a 2-year, $15.6 million deal for Indiana. Brandon Miller had been averaging something like 20, if I remember correctly. So I think he could be really good to this team. I think he could be someone who could like add something really good to this team now, along with Kelly Oubre. Now you have Aaron Nesmith and everyone. I think this could be a really good addition for Indiana. $15.6 million every year. It's a team. It's kind of a team-friendly deal for someone who can score 20 on a given night, and a physical wing with the size. He also can play defense. I think this would be a really good addition for Indiana if they did this, but there's not much to talk about that. Continuing, we have the Heat. We have the Miami Heat. Okay, so this is another interesting. The last few trades have been really interesting because both teams have kind of reason to do this. Now the Miami Heat, why would they do this? Obviously, they signed Drew Holiday to a $17 million contract, 2 years. 2-year deal. Drew Holiday, $17 million year, $17 million every year. This helps to bring playmaking because while Giannis can playmake, and Bam can, in theory, playmake, and these two can in theory shoot the ball, they're going to be focused on operating. I believe they should be focused on operating in the mid range, in the paint, both on the offensive and defensive side. And because Giannis and Bam, nobody's scoring that on that in the paint, and in the mid range, that's going to be really hard to score on. I mean, anywhere that's going to be really hard to score on because these are mobile bigs. And then you bring Drew Holiday, and then they sign Drew Holiday, right? Which I think would be a really good addition because this allows Giannis and Bam to stay, especially on the defensive end, locked in into the paint and mid range, while Drew Holiday goes out and guards the perimeter. And then they trade Andrew Wiggins, who yes, he doesn't bring production, but they bring in a better player than Andrew Wiggins, and bringing back Jimmy Butler. Obviously, he's not Prime Jimmy anymore and everything. Uh, but they get Jimmy Butler and a 2030 round 2 pick from the Warriors. And the Warriors receive Andrew Wiggins and a 2020 round 1 top 5 protected pick and a 2031 round 2 protected pick. So yeah, Drew Holiday allows Bam and Giannis to focus on the paint while he goes out and guards the perimeter. Jimmy can guard the perimeter. Obviously, that's not his specialty. Like that's not what he specializes in, but he can definitely guard the perimeter. And then there are other guys in the Heat. Davion Mitchell, I think he can at least play defense on the perimeter. And when you have those three guys out guarding the perimeter, and you allow Giannis and Bam to be in the mid range and paint, that's gonna be really hard to score on. That's gonna be a defensive monster. That's terrifying defensively. And then Jimmy Butler helps a little bit with the spacing, just a little bit. Drew Holiday brings playmaking. Jimmy Butler brings playmaking alongside Davion. That way, if Davion gets injured, they can get some extra playmaking. But it's not the only thing. Drew Holiday brings a little more experience, and he can help Davion. So can Jimmy. And so you have third string playmaking. If I'm honest, I would go to Drew Holiday before I would go to Davion Mitchell, but I don't know how the Heat are gonna work it out. But anyway, so this is so yeah. And then now Drew Holiday also helps with the spacing because he can shoot it really well. He's really efficient from the 3-point line, and Jimmy can kind of shoot too from the 3-point line. He operates more in the mid range where Giannis and Bam operate, but I trust uh um but having Drew and Davion from the 3-point line. Because now you have all three levels of scoring in your starting lineup. Where do you start? You probably want to start Davion Mitchell at the 1, Drew Holiday at the 2, Jimmy at the 3, Giannis at the 4, or Bam, and then Bam at the 5. And then Bam at the 5, where you could start Giannis at the 5 and flip it around where Bam starts at the 4 and Giannis at the 5. But either way, those two can play either position. But either way, what I'm saying is that Giannis and Bam can operate in the mid range and at the rim. They can take shots from 3, but the main thing that you probably want them to take is shots from 3. Um, Not shots from 3. You probably want them to rim run before everything, like cut to the basket and everything, and or operate in the mid range. And then Jimmy can score at all 3 levels. And Drew Holiday can score at all 3 levels too, which helps a little bit with the spacing. And Davion Mitchell, I haven't really seen him play that much, to be honest, but I trust that he can score. So I think this would be really interesting for the Heat. Obviously, this kind of screws their future over a little bit, even more. But if they want to win now with Giannis and Bam, they probably want to do something like this. Next up, we have the Bucks. Obviously, the Bucks are a rebuilding team, so we're gonna give them some picks. Obviously, that's what they're gonna be looking for, or young players. Say they trade Kyle Kuzma to the Kings, gives the Kings something to work with a little bit there, and then they get a 2028 round 1 top 5 protected pick and a 2027 round 2 pick. It's obviously for a rebuilding team, as Milwaukee is now a rebuilding team, officially a rebuilding team. So yeah, they just do this because obviously you want more picks. The more picks you get as a rebuilding team, the better. That's how OKC came to be OKC. New York. This is a team that just came off a championship run, and not just a championship run, a historic playoff championship run. So this team really doesn't need anything. I did sign Russell Westbrook because this is a very ISO heavy team. And Russell Westbrook can play ISO, but he can also pass it. If you look at his stats, I think he averaged something around 6.7 assists, almost 7 assists per game last season. So he can definitely pass it, and he can run the second unit for the Knicks as a point guard. He can back up Jalen Brunson. Because also looking at the Knicks roster, you realize that they don't have uh, a natural PG outside of Brunson. You look at the roster, and there's no one outside of Brunson listed as a PG. So Russell Westbrook can come out from the bench. Really, I think that'd be a really good role for Russell Westbrook. Also, obviously, this is not MVP level Russell Westbrook where he'd be starting. But yeah, so I think Russell Westbrook could pass it to now Andre Drummond. He'd be something really good for the Knicks to add in the second unit. This is an interesting news for the Knicks to add Russell. And since they had to make a trade, I just traded Tyler Kolek for a 2031 round two from the Nuggets via Sacramento. And that's just kind of the trade. It doesn't really affect them much. But yeah. Next trade. We're almost there. The Magic. Again, this is a team. Now, this team is interesting because there's no one really in a trade that I could find that I was like, oh, he'd bring spacing that teams would be really willing to trade. So they go out and sign Seth Curry, who I'm going to talk about Seth Curry a little bit for a sec. He is often overshadowed by obviously his older brother Steph Curry, who is probably the greatest 3-point shooter ever. But he has the seventh most efficient 3-point shooting in NBA history. He actually, in fact, has a more efficient percentage than his brother Steph Curry. Obviously, that's probably because he takes probably less shots and everything. But he is a tremendous 3-point shooter, and the Magic lack that spacing. So by doing that, you just by doing that, you bring spacing into the Magic. Sorry, guys, I had to slow down for a second there. You just bring spacing to this team that lacks spacing, and I think that would be really good for them. And then in the trade, obviously, it's another time when they have to trade to someone. So let's just trade Alex Morales to the Timberwolves for Roku Sikorsky. Um, it's kind of a young center, I guess, to develop him, and for the Timberwolves, is getting point guard, probably behind Lamelo or something. But the Timberwolves obviously weren't the focus. But yeah. The next trade. 76ers versus Bulls. Okay, so 76ers, they have LeBron. They got LeBron. They got Jaylen Brown. They got Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, VJ Edgecombe. Their starting lineup looks insane. At the one, you put Maxey. At the two, you put Edgecombe. At the three, you put Jaylen Brown. At the four, you put LeBron. And at the five, you put Embiid. That's a tremendously talented lineup. Their bench also looks insane. You got Dean Wade. You got Anthony Simons. Now, this is a small addition, but I think it could be decently useful. Because one thing I do see that they lack is a center off their bench behind Embiid. Because now they don't have Andre Drummond. And while I know Micah Potter may not be the greatest backup center, I have seen him rim run quite a few times this year for the Pacers, and I feel like that aggressiveness could be useful for the 76ers off the bench. Because usually I don't see benches being aggressive like that, and I saw Micah Potter whenever he checked in. He really liked to rim run, he liked to be aggressive. He can also shoot from the three. And he's used to playing with pace because he used to play for the Pacers. And now he plays with another team that will play with pace this year, the 76ers. So I think that could be useful. which I think that could be really useful for them, even though it's a small addition. And then a 2029 round two. And since they had to trade someone, they just traded Caleb Love for a 2029 round two pick, which is kind of alright to the Bulls. I think this is one of the more interesting free agency signings, to be honest. All right, next, the Raptors. They signed Jalen Smith. Reason I did this is because this helps Mamu used to be the Raptors' backup center behind Jakob Poeltl. Now he's not because the Lakers took him. So now they need a backup center. And Jalen Smith does that. So they signed Jalen Smith to a $5.7 million contract in 2 years, to a $5.7 million contract each year for 2 years. And this helps them, Jalen Smith is the Bulls' starter center, right? But I think he can maximize his role on a team like the Raptors as a bench center, because I think he could potentially bring out the same production, the same way of playing against the second unit, and that do a lot more damage against the second unit than it does against a starter unit. So I think that maximizes his role, and it's a really good pickup for Toronto. Even though it's not a really big name, I think it would be a really nice pickup for Toronto. The Raptors, 2028 round 2 pick. They trade via Atlanta. They get it via Nets, who get it via Atlanta. And then they trade a pick to Brooklyn, in which Brooklyn gets the rights to swap. So it's basically kind of a toss-up here. It's again one of those teams where I didn't really see anything that they had to trade, but since I had to make a trade, I did this. It's basically a coin flip to see who gets the better round 2 pick. So yeah. And for our final trade of this video, the Wizards. This is now a loaded team. Again, I'm bringing Scoot Henderson back into the talks. Wizards signing Scoot Henderson. He's going to be a scorer off the bench, who I think could really maximize their potential now that they have Trae Young and Anthony Davis. I think that's going to be really key to having someone that can score on given nights 20 points off the bench. And Scoot Henderson can do that, and it's a decently team-friendly deal. So I think that's really good for them. And basically, they just trade Tristan Vucevic to the Mavericks for a round 1 pick, top 10 protected, and a 2033 round 2 pick. And so, yeah, I think for a second unit, Scoot could be lethal against second units. For the Wizards, it would make their bench a whole lot better, because now you have like DeAndre Ayton coming off the bench, who's going to be a really good backup center, I believe, because he's going to do damage to second units. Obviously, he wasn't really good in the starting lineup for the Lakers, but now it's less tough units he's going to have to go up against. So Scoot Henderson's also really good injury insurance if Trae Young gets injured. And now you have Scoot coming off the bench. So I think this is going to be something really interesting to see how it plays out. And the round 1 pick could convey into something decently valuable. Maybe the Mavericks probably going to be a lottery team. But if it doesn't land top 10 protected pick, then it could be valuable. And the 2033 round 2 pick is just kind of a shoot for the stars kind of thing. But yeah. So, yep, guys, this is it. This was all the trades for part 1 of this video. Which is 1 trade and, if needed, 1 free agency signing for every NBA Eastern Conference team that I think could help them next season. Comment down below what you think about these trades and free agency signings. Make sure to comment down below. Yeah, I guess I'll see you guys the next time. Peace.